The Game of Zen explores the often overlooked ways in which professional, personal, and spiritual growth are interrelated. We dive deep into the life teachings of the Buddha and the mindfulness practices of Zen, revealing how they can help us dramatically expand our possibilities for wholehearted work, life, and play.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Game of Zen podcast. This is Scott. I'm checking in from Philadelphia, PA. As always, joined by my good friend, Sensei Paul. How's everything out there in Boulder today?
Hey, Scott. Good to see you. Things are great. Early fall or mid-fall, I guess. No, technically early fall in Boulder is really beautiful. So we've got good weather happening. And I started my 90-day intensive period with my Zen community over the weekend. So we had a lot of participants in that, some good, strong practice. So really entering the season very nicely. How about you? You're headed out to distant climes to do some work with the Sixers. Tell our listeners about that.
So the Sixer season is starting up, and they're playing preseason basketball in the United Arab Emirates. So I'm heading to Abu Dhabi on Sunday to work a couple basketball games, and I'm really excited. It's not someplace I ever thought I would go to, but we're going to work a few hoop games there. Should be fun.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in today. We are going to talk about the title of Paul's latest newsletter, which is called Zen Shift. And we're talking about dangerous times. And the last couple months, maybe a year in our country, there's been a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the world. There's division amongst people. There's angst. There's violence. And it's confusing and hard to deal with. And so I think what was great about your newsletter, Paul, was you gave us some tools and tips to manage these times. And so I wanted to talk to you about a few things. And you talk about a few self-evident truths. So let's start there. The first one that you list is very simple. Life is hard, and we must earn our keep. So how do we do that, and what do you mean?
Yeah, well, we the premise, of my frame, of the newsletter was that we can think that things are dangerous when we're kind of in perilous situations physically, but actually it's much more dangerous to have false views or to rely on unreliable things in our lives. That's much more dangerous. So one of the fixed ideas that that we're acculturated to believe is that what is the one that you just said?
Life is hard, and we must earn our keep.
Yeah, so we've got a very strong cultural programming that we have to work to prove our self-worth and to live a thriving life, and without denigrating the value and virtue of hard work. I think it's really important to recognize that we're in a very individualistic paradigm with respect to our social values that really overemphasizes the amount of work we have to do in order to, justify our existence. A lot of us are, really trapped in that trance that we're supposed to be working hard. But if you look back at earlier phases of society, there wasn't this obsession, with working hard. It's become its own thing, mostly driven by materialism, and the message that in order to be successful and to get ahead and to accomplish, that these things are essential for us to do. So our self-worth gets wrapped up in that. And it's just a very, very distorted, signal about what's really important in life.
Yeah. I was talking to my daughter the other day. She's working, and she graduated college, and there's just a lot going on. And I said, listen, this is something when you get to be an adult, you realize that there's a lot of life is hard for everyone. No one has a free pass here. And I think that one thing I love about the practice and learning that I'm doing with you and through books and everything is that you can make it easier on yourself or harder, depending on your perception and how you deal with it. And you have to learn how to deal with things that are not going exactly how you would like them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that's a challenge really every day. And something new could happen tomorrow that'll be a challenge for you. And so I think it's really important. But I think your next comment about a constant state of busyness and anxiety is not only natural, but necessary. I thought that was really interesting, because the necessary part is what I focused on, because you can't just escape it, right?
You can't escape it. I mean, it takes practice to be able to cultivate the level of, you could say, confidence, self-confidence, faith in yourself that keeps those kind of anxious demons at bay. But it's such a common habit of our modern minds, is to think that this obsessive overthinking of things is going to work. Right? It's actually going to help us. I call it like problem-seeking mind. It's that not only are we seeking solutions, but we're actually seeking the problems. That's I think that the thing that I've become most aware of in myself and in a lot of the people that I work with, is that there's just this tendency to have this hypervigilance, this incredible hypervigilance around everything, in one's life. So even the most successful people, have oftentimes, live this basic fabric of their mental life is anxious and looking out for the threat that's going to emerge. And when you're constantly in that hypervigilant, basically survival mode, there's no way you're going to be able to deepen yourself into a more relaxed state of being. Well, I mean, you can, but it's hard, right? You actually need a base level of existential functioning. And I think maybe the mental thing we do that makes this really hard is that all of these things appear to be existential when they're not.
Right.
When most of them aren't. Then it's only when we face a real existential threat, like you did with your cancer several years ago, that suddenly you see, this is what a real existential threat looks and feels like.
Yeah.
Versus things like, I'm going to lose a client, or my income isn't as high as it needs to be, or God forbid, my relationship is going to go in the toilet. I'm going to have to get divorced. With all of the catastrophizing that we do is all at the that survival level, and we have a society, and we have a tendency of mind, most of us, to kind of just go there.
Yeah, the problem-seeking mind is very fascinating to me, because I think that there's a balance that you have to have between focusing on problems, but also not being ignorant of problems too. So I think some people tend to have avoidance, and they don't deal with things, and they just sort of do other things to distract themselves. And then other people are too obsessive about problems. So you have to balance it out. And I think it comes up in both work and personal life, where you don't want to ignore what's going bad, but you also don't want to obsess over it. So how do you achieve that balance?
Well, the first thing I think would be to reframe the whole idea of the problem.
Right.
What's the problem? And I think it's worth saying that, our whole technocracy, our whole technocratic society is based on, problem solution paradigm, right? Engineers are about, well, how am I gonna solve this problem, and then how am I gonna engineer a solution to it, right? And we have all of this technology, which is kind of based on that sort of mindset. I'm going to engineer a solution to a problem. I think an initial reframe as to start with, well, what do I want to accomplish? What do I want to manifest? Who do I want to be in my life? What are the qualities I want to support? Not to start with, well, what's the problem I want to solve, but more, what is the generative initiative, or you could say project or manifestation, that I want to do. And then you look at it from that positive lens and say, okay, what are the things that I need to do to support that? What are the obstacles to that? What are the blockages? What are the bypasses? Then you can look at the specific things that are getting in the way of that generative process. But right from the beginning, you got to understand, well, why you're even doing what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's also just keeping things in perspective. And I think when you think about health, obviously, there's some expression, I might get it a little wrong, but you could have 99. If you're healthy, you might have 99 other problems. If you're unhealthy, you have one problem. Right. And I think that when I went through my stuff, which was actually with my heart, I had a major problem, and everything else seemed secondary. And I got through that, and thankfully I'm healthy now. But I never forget about that moment. I even have a picture of my open heart that I look at sometimes to remind me that really, like, whatever else I got going on, at least my heart's pumping today.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting because it is, what is the actual problem that I'm working on, and how important should it be? And I think we tend to overemphasize the problems in our life. Also, external things that are going on in the world. You could read the news and get very depressed every day. It's tough out there, right? But, and I have this other problem with local news, because in Philadelphia, the local news starts with a murder or a fire or something every single day. And I fast forward to the sports because it really can get to you. But then it's like, okay, let me put it in perspective, and let me also understand that it's not permanent, that everything is changing, and tomorrow is going to be a different day. So I think that's what helps me deal with, like, everyday issues.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, why are you watching the news?
I mean, it's interesting to me. I know I watch too much news. I agree. And the politics of the day but it's interesting, and I like to be informed, but I sometimes overdo it, and it does get to me. I admit it.
I got to tell you, I've had a real aha moment just in the last few weeks, because I've had a pretty good, discipline of digital, intake over the years, with the foundation being, I go on a retreat every month for multiple days. So I kind of naturally, titrate news reading and things like that, with extensive periods of nothing. But the last few weeks, I've done even more. And it's mostly because I've been really busy with family and business stuff, that I haven't even done my basic level of sort of headline news perusing for about 2 or 3 weeks. And I have been so happy. There's this base level. My sleep is better. My base level of that, I didn't even realize this base level of anxiety that was coming from all of that is gone. And it's not even someone like me who practices meditation daily. I didn't appreciate the subtle effect that constant awareness of the global news was doing to my body. So boy, it's so essential to have extensive periods away from that.
Yeah, and the phone is a problem too.
Yeah.
And I totally admit I'm on my phone too much. I'm on Twitter all the time. And I really need to have there's certain times when I put it down for an hour or two, and it's great. And I really need to do that more often.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, you can't put your head in the sand either and completely ignore it, because things in the world will affect myself and my family. So I like to be informed. I like to be able to talk about different subjects, but it's a lot of tough times out there. I also think there's a lot of good things in the news. And so it depends on what news you're looking at and how you consume it. And of course, the algorithms. But for instance, like on TikTok, I get a lot of news. I also get a lot of cooking advice. And so I like that. So I'm trying to like more videos about cooking, so that comes in my feed more often.
Well, but one of the problems is that, the streams are so mixed.
Yeah.
There's stuff that's really positive and generative. There's stuff that's really educational. And then it's mixed in with, really alarming, material. And of course, the algorithms are designed that way.
Yeah.
All of those channels are designed that way, to mix in these different types of signals, just to keep you hooked. And I don't really spend time on any sort of like channel surfing or scrolling. There's none of that. I'm intentional about every little bit of content that I go to. I don't really, watch things that are put up in front of my face. And I think that's at the very least, you got to do that in order to bring the discipline, so it's just like a diet, you got to be careful about what you put in your mind.
Yeah, I was just thinking about diet, and I was also talking to a friend about the mind is like if you think about the mind like a muscle, just like when you go to the gym and you work out your arms or legs, you need to really work on your mind every day. And the more that you do and train it, the better you get and the happier you are, I believe. And I think, I think I need a news diet. Yeah, I'm going to try that. One of the other things you put in the newsletter I thought was fascinating is time, money, and other resources are constantly in scarce supply.
Yeah.
There is never enough. That is a very powerful statement. So what are you trying to tell us there?
Yeah. Well, I'm basically just saying the first noble truth of Buddhism right there, which is that, life is dukkha, experience is dukkha. Dukkha is usually translated as suffering, but it's better translated as insufficiency. So that sense of not enoughness. And well, let me ask you: do you have a persistent sense of not enoughness, particularly when it comes to, say, time, money, energy, attention, information? Yeah.
I would say for sure, money is one of them.
Yeah.
And I feel sometimes I go back and forth about this because I don't want to have this attachment to having money as something that causes me suffering, but it does. I admit it. And time, certainly we'd all like to have more time, but I feel like there's always a scarce supply, and that's why I'm working so much to try and create more wealth and income. And then at some point in my life, I hope to be able to relax a little bit. And it's something that's on my mind too often. This is also why I like to get outdoors. I like the weekends. I like sports a lot because it does take my mind off of making money. But I need to keep working on it.
Yeah. Well, how much is enough is the real question. What can you be satisfied with? What are you satisfied with? And I find it to be a very empowering insight to see that there is something within our human nature, our human psychology, which naturally senses that there's not enough of these key resources that we need. It's just, and I don't mean to say that to pathologize it. In fact, I mean to normalize it. And that's the beauty of the Buddha's first noble truth, is that there's just something in the way, if you call it the way the ego is constructed, our basic human psychology, that does see the world as being insufficient in so many ways. And it's these things that have this quality of resource or currency that are the ones that we tend to have this relationship with. So, money, we talked about currency, right? So currency, look at that word. It's a current, it's a flow, right? So it's also, it can be a flow of electrons or a flow of energy. That's another use of current, right? An electrical current or a current of water, like a river, or a current of energy. We even say the flow of time, right? The flow of time. Now, what do we want? Like, there's not enough of this currency. Well, what do we even mean by that? Right? Not enough. Like, we've got a lake and we want it to be an ocean. We got an ocean and we want it to be the whole world, right? No, the key is to shift our relationship with that current so that we're kind of involved with the exchange. Okay. So it's to appreciate what we do have and what we can do with it. That's the shift that we need to take, is, to enter into the current of what we have with respect to money, time, attention, and then to work with what we do have, instead of taking ourselves out of the current and worrying that we don't have enough. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's really great. I was thinking about the noble truths as well. And the second, I just would encourage our listeners to focus on that at the beginning of your journey, or even in the middle, and just really understand what the Buddha was saying here. And what I focus on too is the causes of suffering, the second noble truth. And why am I feeling anxious, or why am I angry, or why am I, feeling this attachment to something? And it does help me get past it, because I do to your point, I do understand and try and put it in its perspective and try not to overemphasize what's going on. And it's a constant thing that I'm working on. And it brings me to your next comment that we must make it on our own. Relying on society is naive. And so we all have the ability to take ourselves out of that thought loop and really get us to a better place. But it does take a lot of practice. Is that what you're saying there?
Yeah. And they are related, because in the first one, we're taking ourselves outside of the actual flow of currency and we're holding ourselves apart from it. And then we're having a problem with it, right? It's like, but no fish like ever in any river ever said there's not enough water here. No matter how big the river is, even a fish in any size aquarium ever said there's not enough water here, right?
Yeah.
So we're isolating ourselves from the flow, and that gets at this question of the individualism, which of course our society supports us doing this, seeing ourselves as individuals, somewhat separate from society on our own. We're not embedded fundamentally, existentially in an interdependent web of other people, of our community. We're encouraged to see ourselves as isolated and separate. And that produces incredible anxiety and incredible suffering. So again, the antidote, the healing is the same. It's actually to enter into the interdependent relation that is available to us. And of course, we need other people's help and other structures in order to do that at that level.
Also, you have to keep working on it too. You got to put in the work, and this is where meditation, mindfulness, and nature comes into it, because you really have to constantly, I believe, you have to constantly focus on what's going on in your life and putting it in place and working your way through challenging times. And you don't know what's coming next. That's the other thing about the unpredictability of the future and staying in the present moment. We all think about the past a lot and worry about the future. The more you can bring yourself back to the present, that's the secret, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the shift is exactly that. And we can do this as an internal mind shift, is from the mind of not enough to the mind of, well, what is here? What is here? What is actually present? What do I actually have? And when we appreciate that, our own life, the present moment, it completely shifts that sense we have that there's not enough. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of it.
Yeah, I want to go back to the time being in scarce supply as well, because I do think about we only have, everyone gets a certain amount of days to live their life. Nobody lives forever. We all end up at the same place, right? So the way I look at it is, I want to spend as little time as possible being down and being upset and anxious. And these things come up in my life, and I say to myself, well, let me try and get myself out of it today or tomorrow. And I don't want to waste a day. I don't want, right? Every day is precious. And so how do I get myself out of whatever is going on today so that tomorrow is a better day? Because time is ticking along and we're not getting any younger. And I think that kind of the impermanence of life itself really allows me to be more happier, I think. Does that make sense?
It does. Is that working for you?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay,
it really is. And it is. And it's also something that I've been talking to other people about when they're upset with something. I said, this is going to pass. Everything passes and things are going to get better. And so I really focus on that. But again, it's taken a lot of practice, a lot of reading, a lot of talking to you. And I've gotten better at it over time.
Yeah. That's the practice.
Yeah. And it also back to focusing on what's really important. And so, yes, money is important just for certain needs in life, but it's not the most important thing. And so it's, how do we put everything in perspective with our friends, our family, our businesses? I also think about it a lot with work. So I wanted to ask you, when you're working with coaching of executives, how do you get them past the difficult times when they're laser focused on their business? How do you get them to zoom out on the bigger picture?
Well, it's actually getting them to zoom in on their body, their mind, and their moment. actually. And I'm working with several people right now who are, very high functioning. They manage hedge funds, or they're lawyers or general counsels, and they just recognize their minds being somewhat afflictive in the amount of the volume, both it sounds loud, their thoughts sound loud, and there's a lot of them. So both senses of volume, they're just so much, and it's kind of an overwhelm. So to help with that is to help them rebalance by just coming back into their fundamental and intrinsic quality of mind and quality of presence, which is available to them. And
Yeah.
it can be done in the moment, and it can be reinforced with meditation practices, even if it's 10 minutes a day, to ground in their body and their mind like that. That's the root of it.
I think this is where coaching really helps a lot. You've certainly helped me a great deal with this part of it, and you really kind of helped me zoom in on things in my own life and focus. And then after we talk, sometimes I practice, and I get a little bit happier for it. So I do appreciate it. Yeah, it's really great. I wanted to tell another quote from your thing, from your newsletter. By the way, you can find it on Substack, Zen Shift. Check it out. It's really excellent. You live every day dreaming that you're in control, that you can manage human affairs when you don't even know what makes you tick. So I guess that's more about the zooming in part, right?
That's the zooming in part. Yeah, exactly. But we're not kind of trained to do that. Our default mode network is to look out to externals to try to, manage our lives and organize everything. And then, this whole story comes from this tale from China from 1200 years ago, where it's actually a government minister, who comes up to the Zen master, who he was called Bird's Nest Roshi because he actually lived in a tree, on a branch, that if it broke, he would fall and die. And the minister said, why are you living such a dangerous life? And the teacher says, this isn't dangerous. The life you're living is dangerous because of what you just said, that you think that you can control events, that you can control other people, even that you can manage society, because this guy was a, Mandarin or something, a government official, that you can sort of manage and control all that when you don't even know yourself. You don't even have a good understanding of who you are and what's driving you. And what we see is that all of your internal, call it neuroses, your fears, your feelings of not enoughness, all of those are going to be projected out onto the people that you think you're trying to control. So number one, you're never going to control them anyway. And number two, you're looking at them through the lens of your own, let's call it neuroses.
Mm-hmm.
So you're never going to succeed in that. So always it has to be, look at yourself and how you're creating a certain view and even a certain reality around your own life. And it really does change anything, and it really is dangerous, because most of us do live this life. And why is it dangerous? It's because we're not ultimately going to be able to function, fully, really thrive, really accomplish what we want to accomplish, let alone live a fully secure, confident, grounded, and happy life, as long as we're doing that.
Right.
It's and then we could end up, with all sorts of misbehaviors that go awry and produce, aggressive responses, or even risky, things that end up, you end up putting yourself in really adverse situations when you look at the world that way. So it is key.
I like the quote at the end. It says, "What the minister says, what is the essential teaching of the Dharma?" And the Zen master says, "Commit no evil, do good deeds." I love that. And when I read that, I thought about, yes, outwardly, yes, to other people, but also internally, when looking inside, like, take care of yourself and give yourself a break and pat yourself on the back and reward yourself when you do good deeds, and don't be so hard on yourself, right? I think we all have a tendency to be hard on ourselves when things don't go exactly the way we want. But at the end of the day, this is all I got. This mind and this body is all I have, and I want to take care of it as much as I can every day.
Yeah, it's essential. You got to start by taking care of yourself, your own needs, because if you don't, not only is it going to constrain your range of function and impact in the world, but it's impossible to really meet somebody. Well, I shouldn't say impossible, but it's difficult to meet somebody clearly in terms of what they need if your own needs are unmet. So they're like your needs are likely going to get mixed up in how you're meeting somebody else's needs.
Yeah. And the best way to do that is practice, right? Yeah. And learning and reading and studying. And I think it's essential, really. I'm better at that very thing over the last couple of years, and I really appreciate it. But it's a constant work in progress, right?
Yep, always. Me too. Yeah.
Right. I know. And you're the Zen master. Awesome.
Sometimes.
Well, we appreciate it, Paul. And we also appreciate everyone listening to us today. Check out Paul's newsletter and contact him for some coaching if you're interested. And thank you, Paul, for your time. Any final words for this session?
Oh, it's been good to spend time with you, Scott. I've missed you. We haven't seen each other for a little while, and have fun in the desert.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And by the way, the Sixers, who knows? We'll do all right. It's going to be a good year.
Well, I'm a Knicks fan, so
I'll send you some pictures. All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you all again soon with our next episode. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration into Zen Buddhism and its transformative influence on work and life. We hope you'll subscribe, share, and comment wherever you get your podcasts. May your journey be one of continuous growth and mindful living. From all of us here at Game of Zen, wishing you peace and prosperity on your path ahead.